To understand the world of Longfellow's epic, we have to start with the storyteller, Nawadaha. He is the one who carries the songs, the one who wanders through the woods and the valleys, singing the stories of the beginning. He begins by telling us about the great spirit, Gitche Manito, who shaped the world. In this mythic landscape, the divine isn't distant, it is active and elemental. The Great Spirit establishes a mandate for peace by creating the peace pipe, commanding the warring tribes to bury their weapons and live as brothers. This sense of cosmic order is reflected in how the poem treats the natural world. Four winds are personified, governing the elemental forces, and every bird, tree, and river seems to have a spirit and a role to play in the grand design. Amidst this massive divine backdrop, the story focuses on a very personal tragedy, the birth of Hiawatha. His origins are as elemental as the world itself. His father is Mudjekiwis, the west wind, and his mother is the maiden Winona. This union is a meeting of the human and the divine, but it is marked by sorrow from the start. After Winona dies, Hiawatha is left to be raised by his grandmother, Nokomis. She is the keeper of his heritage, a source of ancient wisdom who provides the stability he needs as he grows from an orphan into a man of incredible strength. As Hiawatha grows, he isn't just a man living in the woods, he is a figure undergoing a series of cosmic trials to prove his worth. One of the most striking moments in his youth is a massive, elemental battle with his father, Mudjekiwis. This isn't just a fight between a son and a parent, it's a struggle of forces. Through this rite of passage, Hiawatha proves he has the strength and the spirit to become a protector of his people. He isn't just a survivor, he is destined to be a leader. Once he establishes himself, Hiawatha's life becomes a series of acts meant to ensure the survival and prosperity of the Ojibwe. He becomes a provider in ways that feel almost supernatural. In one episode, he undergoes a fast to receive the gift of maize or corn from the celestial being Mondamin. This gift is a sacrifice, a moment where the divine provides the sustenance necessary for a people to thrive. In another trial, he faces a deadly pestilence brought by the magician Mejesogwon. Hiawatha doesn't defeat this evil through brute force alone, but through wisdom and by listening to the natural world. He learns from the woodpecker, who gives him the knowledge he needs to overcome the darkness. These stories highlight a major theme in the poem, the necessity of reciprocity with nature. Hiawatha doesn't command the world, he listens to it. Whether it's the squirrel, the gull, or the woodpecker, the animals are his allies, and he succeeds because he respects the intelligence and the spirit of the creatures around him. As he matures, Hiawatha's role shifts from a warrior and provider to a statesman and a husband. He marries Minnehaha, a union that is deeply symbolic. Their marriage is intended to foster peace and unity between the Ojibwe and the Dakota tribes, turning a personal bond into a political and social bridge. But life for Hiawatha is never without chaos. He has to contend with the unpredictable forces of the world, personified by the trickster Porpukkiwis, whose mischief and shape-shifting represent the disruptions that can come to any stable society. He also experiences the deep personal pain of loss, such as the death of his dear friend Chibiabos, who is taken by the spirits. As Hiawatha reaches the height of his wisdom, he attempts to do something that changes the nature of his culture. He introduces a system of pictographs. He wants to preserve the history and the legends of his people so they won't be lost to time. This is a pivotal moment in the poem because it touches on the tension between the oral tradition and the permanence of a recorded history. In the world of the poem, this act of writing, or marking, draws the ire of evil spirits. It's as if the act of making the stories permanent changes the very fabric of their reality. This leads into the most somber part of the narrative. The poem shifts from the mythic golden age of Hiawatha's life into a much darker, more historical reality. A brutal winter arrives, bringing famine and disease. It is during this time of suffering that Minnehaha, the woman who represented the unity of his people, passes away. Her death is the turning point for Hiawatha. He is no longer just a hero of legend, he becomes a man of prophecy, burdened by a vision of what is to come. In his grief, Hiawatha experiences prophetic visions that change the tone of the entire epic. He sees white-faced men and winged canoes on the horizon. He is seeing the arrival of European colonization. He foresees a world where the traditions of his people will be scattered and the landscape will be irrevocably altered. This is where the poem moves from being a collection of legends into a bridge between the mythic past and the historical reality of the Americas. The ending is both a farewell and a transition. As missionaries arrive to share the teachings of Christ, the old world of Hiawatha is being replaced by a new one. Hiawatha, having completed his earthly mission of protecting and providing for his people, realizes his time in this realm has passed. He bids a final, quiet farewell to his grandmother, Nokomis, and to the people he has served. He launches his birch canoe into the sunset, sailing toward the islands of the blessed in the afterlife. He leaves behind a world that is no longer the one he helped shape, sailing away as the era of the great legends comes to a close. When we look back at this work, it's important to understand what Longfellow was actually doing. The Song of Hiawatha isn't a strictly authentic ethnographic record. Longfellow was a poet working in the mid-19th century, and he synthesized various oral traditions, primarily those of the Ojibwe, into a single, unified narrative. He used the research of scholars like Henry Schoolcraft, but he reshaped the stories to fit a Western literary structure. He even used the name Hiawatha, which was historically Iroquois, for a story about the Ojibwe. He was essentially creating a composite hero, taking the adventures of many different folkloric figures and weaving them into one singular, epic journey. Because of this, the poem functions as a kind of cultural bridge. It uses the language of myth to process the trauma of historical change. By giving Hiawatha a prophetic vision of colonization, Longfellow allows the reader to view the arrival of Europeans through the eyes of the people who were already here, framing it as a cosmic, inevitable shift rather than just a series of political events. And the rhythm of the poem itself is very deliberate. Longfellow wrote in trochaic tetrameter, a driving, repetitive beat that was intended to mimic the cadence of oral storytelling. It has a certain hypnotic quality that makes it feel like a song, which is fitting for a work titled The Song of Hiawatha. This rhythm helps to reinforce the theme of the cycle of nature. Just as the seasons return and the winds blow in patterns, the poem moves in a rhythmic, cyclical way, connecting the human experience to the elemental forces of the world. There is also a profound sense of the intersection between the oral and the written. When Hiawatha creates the pictographs, he is attempting to freeze time. He wants to take the fluid, living breath of oral history and turn it into something static and permanent. Longfellow seems to suggest that this is a heavy, almost dangerous task. It marks the end of the mythic time where stories are told by the fire and the beginning of historical time, where things are recorded, fixed, and eventually lost or changed. Ultimately, the story of Hiawatha is an allegory for the survival and the struggle of indigenous nations. His personal trials, his hunger, his grief, his battles, mirror the broader struggles of a people navigating a changing world. The poem doesn't shy away from the tragedy of the ending, but it also doesn't ignore the dignity of the life that came before. Hiawatha is a hero because he navigates these transitions. He moves from the chaos of his birth to the order of his leadership, and finally to the peace of his departure. As we listen to the echoes of his journey, we see a portrait of a man who was deeply intertwined with the earth. His strength came from the wind, his sustenance came from the earth, and his wisdom came from the animals. Even as his world changed and the white-faced men arrived, the fundamental truths he lived by, respect for nature, the importance of community, and the necessity of peace, remain the core of his legend. He sails into the sunset, leaving behind a legacy that serves as a bridge between the ancient, mythic past and the complex modern world.